There's a type of presence that freezes an entire room without a single sound. It's not about muscles, money, or threats. It's something far more primal and absolutely terrifying. Ever noticed how certain people enter a space and everyone just stops? They've cracked the code. Watch until the end. You will be surprised. Here's the truth nobody tells you. Real intimidation has nothing to do with aggression. Aggression is desperation wearing a mask of strength. True power is when you control the environment simply by existing in it. Think about this. A ninja never announced their arrival. They simply appeared, and the target already knew it was over. This isn't fiction. It's applied neuropsychology. Our reptilian brain detects threats through microsignals: posture, breathing patterns, eye control, economy of movement. When you master these elements, you become a living question mark. People can't read you, and what we can't decipher scares us. The fascinating part: this works in boardrooms just as effectively as it worked in feudal Japan. CEOs who speak less are perceived as more competent than those who dominate conversations. Why? Because someone who speaks rarely chooses when to speak. And when they finally do, everyone listens. Practical application. Picture this. You walk into a meeting. Everyone's talking, gesturing, trying to prove something. You sit down. No smile, no frown. Just observe. 5 seconds later, subconsciously everyone starts glancing at you. Why? Because you broke the pattern. It's like an investigative principle. When everyone's running, whoever stands still becomes the suspect. And suspects are always watched. Your body is broadcasting. I don't need to explain myself. And that, my friend, is power in its purest form. Every relaxed muscle is a declaration of absolute control. People dominated by anxiety move too much. People dominated by insecurity talk too much. You simply exist. And that disturbs them, because whoever doesn't reveal vulnerability cannot be attacked. This connects directly to ancient strategy. When you withhold information, others fill the void with their own fears. And fear is always worse than reality. But here's where it gets darker. One law of power integrated. When you say nothing, people project their own narratives onto you. They assume you know more than you do. They assume you're calculating something they can't see. This is psychological warfare through absence, using the void as your weapon. But here's the question nobody asks. What if real power isn't about showing strength, but about hiding your actual capacity? Because what comes next will completely change how you see silence. And maybe, how you breathe. How emotional stillness becomes your greatest weapon. Let me tell you something intelligence operatives have known forever. The more someone talks, the weaker they are. And before you think that's extreme, consider this: every fallen leader in history made endless speeches before their collapse. You know what happens when you explain too much? You hand over the blueprint of your thinking, and whoever has the blueprint controls the territory. Take a bizarre example: Giacomo Casanova. The man had an unsettling presence. Not because he was loud, but because he watched deeply and let silence do the heavy lifting. People attributed powers to him he didn't even need, because the human mind fills the void. And it always fills it with the worst possibility. This isn't magic. It's strategic manipulation of ambiguity. Now connect this to modern psychology. Studies show that people who maintain longer pauses before responding are perceived as more thoughtful and trustworthy. Why? Because they demonstrate temporal control. They decide when the interaction happens. But here's where most people fail. They confuse silence with passivity. Real silence is active. It's a trained response. It's discipline so brutal that your natural reactions get overwritten by strategic choices. Daily life application. Next time someone pressures you for an immediate answer, just look at them. Count 3 seconds, then respond with half the words you'd normally use. What happens? They get uncomfortable, and discomfort creates psychological submission. Not because you were aggressive, but because you demonstrated control over time itself. This is ancient wisdom applied to modern scenarios. When you control the pace, you control the outcome. Negotiations, conflicts, even casual interactions. The person who can endure silence longer wins. And here's the crucial detail. This doesn't work if you're nervous inside. It has to be genuine. And how do you get there? Brutal stoic training. You train your mind to not need external validation. Without needing validation, you don't need to perform. And when you don't perform, you dominate. One law of power. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. But here, the honesty is in your stillness. You're being completely authentic in your refusal to react. And that authenticity becomes disarming because it's so rare. But could you actually go 3 full days without trying to prove anything to anyone? Because the next layer of this is almost supernatural, and it involves something that warriors called the death stare, the presence that kills without touching. What if your heartbeat could control the room? Here's something that sounds like conspiracy theory, but is pure neuroscience. Humans unconsciously synchronize with whoever has strong presence. Breathing, speech rhythm, even heartbeat. Sounds crazy? Research neural entrainment. It's real, and you can weaponize it. Concept deepening. There's a concept in warrior philosophy called presence without presence. Being there without being emotionally available. It's not about being cold. It's about being calculatedly calm. When your breathing is slow and controlled, you transmit a subconscious message, I'm in control. And you're not. You know those interrogators who walk into a room and simply feel when something's wrong? They're not using magical intuition. They're reading micropatterns, accelerated breathing, shifting eyes, muscle tension. And you can reverse engineer this. If you control your micropatterns, you control how people read you. Now imagine this at social scale. You arrive in a hostile environment. Everyone's accelerated. You deliberately slow down, shoulders relaxed, nasal breathing, slow, fixed gaze, but not aggressive. Within 90 seconds, the ambient tension starts dropping. Why? Because you became the emotional anchor of the space. This is psychological warfare at its finest, using your own nervous system as a weapon of influence. Real-world application. This works in negotiations, arguments, even casual interactions. Someone's trying to stress you out, you breathe deep, pause, respond with the voice 20% lower than theirs. The person subconsciously lowers their tone too. You just hijacked the emotional dynamic of the dialogue. The boldness here isn't yelling, it's having the courage to be slow in an accelerated world. That, ironically, makes you seem dangerous. Because you're not reacting, you're choosing. And choice, my friend, is the luxury of the powerful. Think as you like, but behave like others. Except here, you're doing the opposite. You behave differently to force others to think like you. Your calm becomes contagious. Your pace becomes their pace. How many times have you reacted when you should have just observed? Transcendence. If you're starting to feel there's a level of control they never taught you, hit that like button and subscribe, because what comes next is the deepest and most dangerous layer of this technique. Because silent intimidation isn't just about presence, it's about erasing your visible humanity, and that changes everything. Why eliminating microexpressions makes you inhumanly powerful. I'm going to tell you something intelligence operators learn in advanced training. Real control begins when you kill your microexpressions. And yes, it's possible. And yes, it makes you disturbingly effective. This is information most people will never access. Remember everything we discussed? Strategic silence, controlled breathing, economy of movement. Now combine all of that with absolute facial control. Our brain is programmed to read faces from birth. When someone smiles, we relax. When someone frowns, we prepare. But what happens when there's nothing? When the face is a neutral mask, almost inhuman, the brain goes into maximum alert because it can't predict. And what it can't predict, it fears. This isn't psychopathy, it's stoic discipline taken to the extreme. Ancient warriors practiced this. They knew that showing emotion was showing weakness, so they trained until their face became stone. Empty eyes, relaxed jaw, zero micromovements. Now think about this. In a negotiation, someone insults you. You don't react. Not a single muscle moves. The person gets lost because they shot an arrow and didn't see where it landed. That's pure psychological power. This connects to everything. When you combine emotional stillness, controlled breathing, strategic silence, and facial neutrality, you become something beyond human perception. You become an anomaly, and anomalies always command attention. Practical transformation. You can train this. Start simple. Next time you receive news, good or bad, hold your expression for 5 seconds. Don't smile, don't frown, just process. Over time, this becomes automatic. And when you master this, you become an unnatural presence. People look at you and can't deduce anything. And that, my friend, is ultimate strategic positioning. You become a living enigma. And enigmas always command power. The transformation is internal first: mental sovereignty, emotional discipline, strategic thinking, but it manifests externally in ways that make you magnetically disturbing. Conceal your intentions, not just mentally, but in every micro-expression. Your face becomes a vault. Your reactions become choices. Your emotions become weapons you deploy strategically, never accidentally. If you could erase all your visible reactions, who would you become? Sovereignty. If you realize that real control isn't about dominating others, but mastering yourself, comment below. What was the biggest revelation from this video for you? Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who needs to understand that true power is silent. But there's something even deeper than this. Something about negative presence. When your absence creates more impact than your presence. And that is another level entirely.